Well, good morning, everybody. Here is my kind of unusual video for today. And as the title says, no one admitted under 60. And if you're under 60, you can watch this. But the younger you are, the less interested you're going to be, because today is about those things from the late 60s and early 70s that I remember from my childhood that it's nostalgia. It's stuff that I love remembering and thinking about. Around about 1968 through 1972, those things that are no more that I loved. And here we go. The first thing is Plazas. Believe it or not, if you're younger, before there were malls, which the malls have gone away now, they've come and gone, which blows my mind. But before malls, there were plazas. That's where you went. If you wanted to go to a place that had like more than one store, you went to the plaza. And I grew up in Pittsford, New York, which is a suburb of Rochester, New York. And there was Pittsford Plaza. Yeah, there was a grocery store. There was a J.C. Penney. There was a toy store. That's where the toy store was. It was amazing. I loved the toy store. And it wasn't a place where people went and hung out because it wasn't conducive to that. Now, I do remember there was a mall in downtown Rochester that I went to once or twice. It was really huge. It was the only, if you wanted to go to a mall, there was one, and it was in Rochester. And incidentally, there was one McDonald's, and it was like on the other side of Rochester. It was like, I don't know, it would probably take, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes to get there from. So there was no way my dad was going to take me to McDonald's. And I'm a little kid and I'm seeing all these McDonald's commercials. It's like, I want to go to McDonald's. And I did not get to go to McDonald's until much later, when I was, in the like late 70s. I think my first time was probably when I went away to prep school in New Hampshire. There was one that they would take us to. Um, Come on up, Dottie. Come here. Come on. Dottie's crying because George is in her bed. She's gone out. She's gotten her up. George just vacated the bed and Dottie got in it. So that'll be no more crying from Dottie. Where was I? So there was a fast food place called Carol's in Pittsford, and it was a knockoff, really, of McDonald's. Maybe McDonald's was a knockoff of that, but they sold the same kind of things. I got to go there, and that was down the road from the plaza. There was also Uncle John's Pancake House. That was I think it was a small regional chain of pancake houses, but we used to go there every once in a while. The other thing, drive-in movies. God, I loved the food in drive-in movies. Do you believe that? They have these little cheeseburgers they would wrap in foil, and you would you would go and get in line and you could grab a wrapped cheeseburger, and something about the taste of those were just incredible. There was a Rochester drive-in. I gotta confess, I don't really remember going there in particular. What I do remember is in the mid 70s, my stepmother had a lake house up in northern New Hampshire in a little town called Meredith. And I'm not sure whether it was in Meredith or just outside it. There was a drive-in, and I worked in the local grocery store, and all the employees would hang out together, and we were friends all summer, and we used to go to the drive-in quite a bit. And I have vivid memories of that. So that was in New Hampshire. Here's another one. The Sears Catalog. Christmas time, Sears Catalog. Remember, in the living room, the Sears Catalog is like this thick, would sit on the coffee table in the living room. And why, as a little kid, would I care about the Sears Catalog? Because it had a big, thick toy section. I mean, by Christmas time, the toy section pages were wrinkled and tattered and had milk stains, and I just loved going through that toy section and making my Santa Claus list. It was the Sears catalog. Oh boy, 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 boy. All right, so set this next one up is that there was I lived in Pittsford, and Pittsford was considered a village, and it was pretty old fashioned, right? There was a little we lived about 1 mile from the center of the village where all the stores and stuff. There's no chain stores, no fast food. It was all locally owned businesses. And I have this memory of there was the Pittsford department store, right? It was there was a little department store, and I think in the back was a little pharmacy, and then attached to that was a little liquor store. And my dad would make pilgrimages a couple times a week to there to get his cigars, or maybe to get a bottle of scotch or whatever it was that he drank. And I would go and I would buy comic books. There were comic books and candy. And I can remember, I think I got 50 cents a week for allowance. And 50 cents would buy you several comic books and a pile of candy. 50 cents, I swear. I think the candy bars were a nickel. Maybe at one point they went up to a dime. I think that the 10 cents maybe for comic books. Tell me if I'm wrong, but like 50 cents would go a long way back then. I just remember that store vividly. The other thing I remember about that store is in the back, there was this machine where you could take vacuum tubes from your TV and plug them in, and it would tell you whether it was good or bad, and you could buy a replacement vacuum tube for your TV. Crazy, huh? So, and in the same street in the middle of the village was Hicks and McCarthys. Hicks and McCarthys. And that was, you can see here, this is an older version of it. But I'm going to tell you, when I was going there, other than the vintage sort of look at the picture, all the fixtures were exactly the same, right? On one side there was a cabinet with cigars and stuff, and the other side was the soda fountain, the lunch counter. You could sit there, and then behind where the photographer is standing was the section with tables and stuff. And I spent a lot of time in Hicks and McCarthys when I was a kid. And you could get a milkshake there, the kind of milkshake where, they have the, like a tall metal cup that they stuck in the milkshake thing to mix it up, right? And they would take a glass and they would pour the milkshake into the glass, but there's always some left in that container. For some reason, it was always bigger than the glass, and they'd give you both. So you drink your milkshake and you drain the rest of that metal into that glass. They had great hamburgers and hot dogs and stuff. The other thing that even at a very young age, I'd walk to school. It was not a big deal walking to school. Rain, sleet, snow. The old joke was, when I was your age, I had to walk to school. It was uphill both ways. In the snow and sleet, and I didn't have a jacket, and I was barefoot. Okay, so my school wasn't that far away, and it was not uphill both ways. Now, one school I went to in Pittsford, it was uphill going to school and downhill coming back. But when we lived that mile away from the village, and I was going to grade school there, it was flat. There was no hill, and it was a mile to get to school. And it was you walk down the sidewalk, and nobody thought it was a big deal. And as a kid, we rode our bicycles everywhere. And I couldn't believe my dad did this, but he bought me a Stingray. I had a Schwinn Stingray with a shifter that had 3 gears. and it was it was a beautiful bike. It was gold. I remember I got it for Christmas, and I wasn't allowed to take it outside because it was upstate New York on Lake Ontario. It was There was snow and ice everywhere. You couldn't ride your bike anywhere. So it sat in the basement fully assembled from December until probably, March is probably when I was able to finally venture out there and they let me take it outside. But boy, did I love that bike. And we rode bikes everywhere. And it's back in the day where your parents didn't know where you were. They just, you need to be back at dinner time. You knew when dinner time was. That's when you had to be back. And you just went off and biking through neighborhoods and just going into the village or playing in construction sites. I guess that would be, the cops would probably come today if there were kids trespassing on a construction site, and they'd probably be arrested. But we played in construction sites all the time. Not while they were doing it, but like on, I guess it would be the weekends or late in the afternoon when the construction workers weren't there, like building houses and stuff. And there were all kinds of neat things to play with and explore. And that's what we did. And that's what life was like in the suburbs in 1960. If you've ever seen The Wonder Years, that TV series, that was my life in the late 60s, early 70s. I think Kevin Arnold, the star, the central character in that show, was 1 or 2 years, I think 2 years older than me, but I was in there. I hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed making it. What a blast from the past. I know this was not been the typical RVing video, but I just wanted to do it because I thought it would be fun. Take care.